atakayehesabiwa.
This is the Scheveningen prison, which houses suspects who are brought before the International Criminal Court. So it is where people like Charles Taylor are, people like Lubanga from the Congo, people like Jean-Pierre Bemba from Congo. They're all housed here now. And this is where, if any suspects from Kenya are ever indicted, they will come here. So this is it. Most Kenyans say they would be delighted for the big fish to be guests here, because we have a parliament very hostile to holding trials for the 2007 election disaster. In fact, we have a coalition government with political leaders and criminals on both sides of the divide who have no reason to go after themselves. And that's not all. Look, we're all guilty of avoiding the truth. We all have a different narrative about what's going on, and we don't take enough time to listen to the other side. But we must. At the moment, we all tell different stories about what happened in Kenya's worst crisis since independence. Was the election disaster in December 2007 planned? Was the 2 months of violence that followed organized? The answers given depend on where we come from, and these stories are driving us further apart. We have stopped behaving like a nation, and the future looks very bleak. The longer we avoid justice, the more fragile Kenya becomes. Chidi Odinkalu, who helped indict former Liberian President Charles Taylor, puts it more forcefully.
Kenya going into a civil war is not an option for Africa. I'm sorry. This is not a Kenyan issue. Kenya conflagrating is not an option. And that is a point that the leadership of this country has got to absolutely understand. And the only way, in my view, to address this is some people have got to begin to be held to account for this kind of thing as a disincentive to apocalypse.
Well, the arguments rage on among our leaders, and a number of politicians are already known to be suspects. Do we trust the government to conduct these trials fairly here in Kenya, or should we hand over to the International Criminal Court, the ICC?
Kenya does not deserve to have these massive attacks. So I think it's time to work together to stop this. If we have to investigate, we'll investigate some people to ensure that in Kenya and work with Kenyans to be sure that this cannot be repeated.
That's Luis Moreno Ocampo, prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, the ICC. He says he's willing to get some of the big fish. Kenyan Minister of Justice Mutula Kilonzo prefers a local solution.
It would be useful if we were a failed state. The ICC must continue to be able to step in, particularly in African countries where there is complete breakdown of law and order, complete breakdown of the institutions of governance, but not where a country is still running, for heaven's sake. And now that I'm sitting here, let me tell you.
Well, I think ordinary Kenyans are best placed to know how well the country is running. Some 1,300 people were killed during the crisis, but hundreds of thousands of others were chased out of their homes and attacked when the country split along political and ethnic lines. Since then, segregation has become a way of life. Many who fled are still in areas where their ethnic groups are in the majority, where they feel safer. Dorothy used to live in Naivasha. People who fled Naivasha were attacked purely because their ethnicity was associated with the opposition.
Announcement ya Kibaki venye ilishinda. Sasa hii announcement ilikuwa jioni hivi tukitoka kazi. Ndio kuanza hii nduru, piga kelele. Sasa hapo kila mtu sasa si anatorokea kwake. Watu wenye wanasikia sasa mtu wewe unajishuku tu wewe ungefaa hapo penye wanapiga kelele hapo. na ilisemekana vizuri sana ati kabila yote waende. Siku yenye nilienda kurepiwa, nilitoka kazi tu jioni mzuri. Sasa watu wanapiga nduru mbele yangu, huku watu wanauliwa, huku watu, sasa ni kelele. Nimejifunga tu kitambaa hivi. Sikuwa naacha leso, hivi tu naenda tu pole.
Peke yako?
Peke yangu, sababu sasa hata Wakikuyu hao marafiki zangu sasa mtu amekuwepo. Nao Wajaluo wenye walikuwa hapo kila mtu ametoroka. Nikaona mtu mmoja anakuja na mbio. Sasa huyu anakimbia, mimi pia naye nakimbia. Kumbe sijui kama huyu mtu ananifuata. Akanifuata. Akaniambia, "Sasa unakimbia unaenda wapi? Unafikiria unaweza kutoroka?" Akaniangusha chini. Mpaka hata kuna mark, ni kofia nimevaa. Kuna mark, so unashika, hebu touch. Kuna mark, unaona? Sasa waliniangusha hapo na wakararua nguo yangu. Mwingine akaanza, huyo mwenye alinifikia kwanza akaanza akamaliza. Tena mwingine akaanza akamaliza. Tena mwingine akaniambia, "We guyeno, die." Lakini yeye ni mzuri tusimuue. Huyu hajafanya na sisi kelele, yani alikuwa mzuri. Alikuwa tu polite tukifanya. "We die, moda, die guyeno." Wananifukuza nikienda.
Sasa watu ngapi?
Watu 5. Sasa venye nilienda kwangu, nikaenda tu pole. Nikae kwangu ama nifanye nini? Yani mwili inaenda tu hivi. Na sijui nifanye nini. Akili imepotea, mimi na kuangalia tu kama macho, hata sasa sijui. Akili kanifikijia. Wacha niende niambie nani? Esther anifungulie. Alikuwa ni Esther Salome anifungulie. Sasa nikiambia Salome anifungulie, sijui kama atanikaribisha ama pengine anaweza kuita wale wakuje na lugha yao. Yeye ni Mkikuyu mwanamke na ni mwokovu. Akanifungulia mlango. Kunifungulia mlango akaniambia, "Dorothy, ingia kwa nyumba shanda na usiongee hata usikohoe." Hapa nililala na sikulala hata nimelala. Nimekojoa hapa, hata sikulala hata nalala hakuna. Nikaamuka kitu kama saa 2 mchana.
Kenyan courts have never taken rape very seriously. But you know what? It's a crime against humanity, and it's taken very seriously by the ICC.
Sexual violence as a tool of conflict is a well-known tool. It terrorizes, it attacks the individual, it attacks the family, it attacks the community. So it's very commonly used in conflict situations. And it is also used as a way to reward combatants. And in the situation of Kenya and the post-election violence, that was no exception. Now the next step is that this sexual violence that has taken place must be prosecuted.
Ni shamba kubwa karibu na bahari. Hakuna mtu alijua niko hapo kwa siku 4. Hakuna mwenye alijua. Nikakaa tu hapo na umbu na hiyo baridi siku 4, hakuna cha kukula. Kitu inaniambia ni ruke hii fence, niende nijitumbikize kwa bahari, nikufe rather than kunichinja kama kuku hivyo venye wanachinja watu. Hii chakula nilipewa huko chini ya bahari huko. Sasa mzungu alikuwa anataka nitoke huko kabla mtu ajaniona. Toka tu pole, at least kuja nifiche mahali. Sijui ni driver yake ndiye alisikia akisema, sijui nini. Alisikia tu, alisemesiwa ati kuna mama Mjaluo bado iko kwa hiyo farm. Ati wakae wakijua saa 5 mchana watakuja kunichukua. Kama wawezi kunitoa nje niuliwe.
You might think it's too late to do anything, but it's not. International human rights lawyers are working on making it more difficult to get away with impunity, and Kenya signed up to that. The ICC has the authority to administer justice for Kenya and can do so at The Hague, in Kenya, or in a third country if Kenya is unwilling or unable to do so.
We know the perpetrators, we know their accusations have been there, evidence has even been collected. The stumbling block now is the actual prosecution. And if the national government is not willing to do it, or the hybrid tribunal is not being set up, then our only last and final option is an international court. Now, when the ICC prosecutes, they prosecute people who are the quote-unquote big fish. These aren't necessarily people who necessarily raped themselves, but if they had command responsibility, if they were in a position to prevent or punish these crimes, they are responsible for the rapes, whether they themselves raped or not.
Dorothy did not report the attack to the police. The first time she talked about it was to the Waki Commission, which took testimonial evidence in the affected provinces. The commission was charged with the task of investigating the election-related violence. Led by Judge Philip Waki, it came up with tough recommendations. And a shake-up of the entire system of law enforcement in Kenya.
Personally, sometimes I feel a sense of regret that we, in defining the terms of reference for the Waki Commission, we gave them the power to make suggestions as to how we deal with post-election violence. I have to think about it, and I think we should have stopped at the point that we asked them to tell us the causes, and then we leave to the country to determine how to deal with those causes and those who actually did it. But of course, like all Kenyans, I'm well aware there has been serious impunity. I would have preferred Kenya to set up a local tribunal at the time that the bill was on the floor of the House. My position was very clear, because by refusing to pass that law, we were telling the world and ourselves that we can't do it, that we cannot prosecute our own citizens within our own boundaries.
The Waki report made a lot of people uncomfortable with what it said, including who died where and how many. The report slammed the security forces. Not only did they fail to protect, they were part of the problem, killing and raping and taking sides in the conflict. I really should talk to the Commissioner of Police, General Mohammed Hussein Ali. He was in charge of the security forces during the crisis. Good afternoon, madam.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. My name is Maina Kiai,
Yeah.
and I'm calling to see if I can make an appointment with a commissioner.
If you can?
I can have an appointment to meet with a commissioner of police.
Yeah, I'm the secretary.
And he's there, isn't he?
Sorry?
Is he there right now?
Yeah, it's him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why don't you give me to him so I can speak to him and ask for an appointment?
Just a moment. Hello, sir.
Yes, madam.
Amesema we put it in writing, useme ni siku gani unataka kuja kumuona and the reason.
The only way to get to see him is for me to write a letter.
Yes.
And I bring it to the office.
Yes.
And in the letter... "405 people were shot dead by the police during the crisis," says the Waki report, many in the back, including women and children. By the time President Kibaki was hurriedly sworn in on State House lawn, 3 days after the disputed election, paramilitary units had been deployed against opposition demonstrators. Security forces made their presence felt in Kisumu and Nairobi with what appeared to be a shoot-to-kill policy. But they were conspicuously absent in the Rift Valley, where militia groups had taken over. There, the killings took a new turn. 38 people were burnt alive in Kiambaa Church, Eldoret, on January 1st. It shocked the world. It was compared to events in the Rwandan genocide. Mary is a survivor. She was targeted purely because her community is associated with the ruling political party.
Tulisikia fununu ya kwamba ati hao majirani wetu wana Kenya wenzetu hao Kalenjin ati ya kwamba wanasema ya kwamba ati watakuja kutuchapa. Hasa
mnamsikia hiyo lini?
Tulisikia baada ya kurusha kura. Tukaenda sisi na watoto. Tukaenda tukalala kwa kanisa wa mama na watoto. Na tukabeba kitu kama mattress ili tukwenda kutandikia watoto kwa kanisa. Ilikuwa kanisa la KAG, juu ndio iko katikati ya shamba letu. Walikuwa wengi, hata sijui niseme ni juu walikuwa ni kama mchanga kabisa vile unaona wanakuja. Wanatoka kila sehemu, hata wazee wetu juu walikuwa wazee na vijana wetu juu walikuwa huko nje, hatukuwa na wao kanisani. Wakati waliwaona vile wamekuja, walianza kusaidiwa na miguu. Wakaanza kupotea, walikuwa huko nje, hatukuwa na wao kanisani. Hasa wao wakapotea, wakaanza kutoroka kila mtu na njia zake. Lakini mwenye alikuwa anashikwa, alikuwa kabisa anakatakatwa, anakuwa kama nini. Haya, sisi tukiwa kanisani, mama mwingine akapigia, alikuwa na namba ya simu ya AP wenye walikuwa hapo Ospan. Akawapigia simu, akawaambia waje ili waweze kutuokoa. Wakasema kwamba hati sio wakati ya kutuita sisi, ni wakati wa kuita Mungu wenu. Sasa tukawa hatuna lingine.
Polisi akasema hivyo?
Sasa hatukuwa na lingine. Mbali sasa ingetubidi tu. Sasa tuingie tu kwa kanisa. Sasa Mungu tu atusaidie. Wakachukua zile mattresses. Wakaweka hapa nini? Hapa kando ya nyumba ya kanisa. Sasa kanisa yenyewe. Wakaweka hizo mattresses hapo hivyo. Baadaye bado tu tunasikia mamawe vile zinagonga kanisa juu mabati. Tunasikia kana kwamba itaweza ingia hata ndani ya kanisa. Tulipokuwa wanarusha hizo mamawe na tuko ndani, sasa mpaka unashindwa sasa utapotelea wapi. Kidogo tu si tukaona kanisa yenyewe huko juu moto inawaka. Mimi nilipokuwa nikitoka nje. Mimi nilitokea kwa hii mlango kadogo ya pasta yenye pasta huwa anaingilia. Mimi nilikuwa mtoto wangu, nisikia ya kwamba anafinywa akiwa kwa mgongo. Nikampendua, nikamleta huku mbele. Akiwa mbele bado nikasukuma kabisa. Mimi nilipofika tu hapa kwa mlango kabisa na niko karibu tu kutoka kabisa, nikasukuma kabisa hadi nikaanguka. Nilipoanguka, nilianguka tu hapa kwa mlango. Uso na nusu mwili ikawa iko nje. Naye miguu ziko ndani. Haya, mtoto mwenyewe alianguka penye palikuwa na mattress. Na hiyo mattress ilikuwa inawaka kabisa moto. Hasa huyo mtoto akaanza kuungua, akaanza kunililia akiniambia mama niokoe, na najaribu kumfuta na mimi nashindwa juu nimelaliwa na watu wengi sana na mlima wa watu. Nikijaribu hata kujitingiza nitoke, yani niamke na kuwa ni ngumu. Kisha huyo mtoto akachomeka, leso ikachomeka, ikaanguka, yani ikatuachanisha mimi na mtoto. Mtoto akalia hadi akanyamaza. Aliponyamaza mimi nikafanya nini? Nikajaribu kujiamsha. Kisha nikasikia niko na kanguvu kadogo tu nitaweza amka. Nikajifuruta kabisa juu nimelaliwa kabisa. Nikajifurutia chini hadi nikasimama. Niliposimama nikaanza kutembea polepole, juu kutembea kulikuwa shida. Miguu iko na uchungu. Kunasikia kama inataka kutoka, kama kuna nyama inataka kutoka.
Nani atakayepaza sauti ya haki?
So how is Kenya dealing with this? Some people have been taken to court over the Kiambaa atrocities. Does this mean we're getting justice? 4 people were charged with the Kiambaa attack. It is one of the very few murder cases prosecuted relating to the crisis. But the judge released all the Kiambaa suspects on the grounds of poor police investigations. Off camera, someone working with the prosecution confided in me. He said there was political pressure to take people to court, whatever the weaknesses of the case.
Kutakasika na kuendelea mbele kama raia, watu wa Kenya, watu ambao wanapendana, watu ambao wanasema kweli, watu ambao wanatafuta haki kila wakati, na watu ambao
Here the Kalenjin community in Eldoret celebrate the homecoming of the 4 men. While just up the road, among the greys of Kiambaa, there is fear and disbelief that the men have been set free. It's raining. It's raining, and I've got some people who want to talk to me, but they don't want their faces to be seen because there's a lot of fear. So let me get in here and talk to them. You'll hear their voices, but you won't see who they are.
Sasa utasema nisaidia na si wale watu wajahukumiwa, si wameachiliwa. Sasa utasema kuna msaada hapo kweli, hata kama ni hakuna msaada.
Mungependa kuona watu waende mahakama na wafungwe. Washtakiwe na wafungwe.
Ushahidi, washahidi walikataa kujitokeza. Kwa sababu ya kuogopa, kuhofia maisha. Sasa vile washahidi hawakutokea, hiyo ndio ilifanya haki kukosa kutendeka.
Unaogopa kwa nini?
Tunaogopa kwa sababu sasa si unajua sasa kama vile sasa tunasema wale wakubwa wapelekwe kule. Si hivyo ndivyo tumependekeza. Si unajua wafuasi wao wako. Sasa watajua this is not a friend. Kitu chochote kinaweza kikakutendekea na hakuna haja. Sasa tuwezi kubali chukua picha.
Kama tungefanya hii special tribunal, special court ambayo itakuwa na Wakenya lakini watu kutoka nje, majaji, prosecutor, investigator wanatoka nje. Munaona mnaweza kutoa ushahidi kwa hawa watu?
Bora tuhakikishiwe usalama iko. Sisi tuko tayari. We are ready provided we are assured of security.
Safety for witnesses is a big part of the reluctance to hold trials in Kenya. We have weak protection laws and a lot of unsolved extrajudicial killings. This is Emmanuel, one of those acquitted of murder. In court, a witness identified him as rescuing, not attacking. He is also angry about the way the case was handled, without any serious investigation or procedure. You find that there's a lot of issues that are raised. So in your case now, you've just been released. You are accused of being a murderer and taking part, but you've been released. How do you feel? How do you feel?
Well, you see, where do I begin from? The time it was so traumatizing. Yeah. It was. The statement says she saw me only and I was not armed, I was not carrying anything. That is what she recorded with the police. Now, when it came to the arresting stage, I would have expected these people, the policemen, to ask me when recording the statement that Mwalimu, you went to the church. Exactly, I went there. I was there. I live, I'm just adjacent to Kiambaa. I live almost immediately, I'm most in the boundary. I was there. Now, Mwalimu, what happened? Tell us exactly what happened. And I would have told them my part of the story, how I rescued, how I was also warned, that kind of thing. They didn't ask me those questions. They simply told me, utueleze penye ulikuwa siku hiyo. Just that. Told me nilienda Kiambaa na nikarudi. That is the statement that we recorded. Only that. No more detailed breakdown or this and this was said of you. Nothing. During the hearing, when majority were brought in, like they investigated the arresting officer was asked, why couldn't you go through the statements first and get a report exactly whom to arrest? I mean, you arrested this person and the statement is so clear. This is a person who rescued. He was pushed to the corner by the council. So, the opinion was now like, these people were not really doing the work of genuine arresting. They just wanted to pick.
And why do you think your case moved so fast?
That is exactly what happened. It reached somewhere where they were saying it was a national security issue.
And who was telling you this?
It is the judge who told the state council, this matter is mighty, it is weighty, and the case has to move faster.
Kenyans lost faith in the judiciary many, many years ago. Actually, people go there because they have no option, I think. From my own experience, I would say that the police can make or unmake a case. Because the police is also corrupt, it was rated the most corrupt police institution in Eastern Africa. They can compromise investigations by making sure that they either don't get the evidence that is required, or they destroy that evidence, or they compromise the evidence by doing things that they know would be illegal, that would be unacceptable in court. Because the police are the greatest perpetrators of the violations, they are usually reluctant and incapable of investigating themselves in any event. And of course, if they find that there would be evidence, they usually obliterate that evidence by whether it's by killing the witnesses or threatening the witnesses and compromising the cases themselves in terms of the integrity of the investigations.
A badly done case leaves bitterness and discontent. That's clear. Around Kiambaa, tensions are still very high between the communities. The absence of reconciliation efforts has been made worse by the way the case was handled. Umesema ni watu ngapi tena?
Nasema ni watu 391. Hii jamii haijatukubali na haijatukaribisha. Hata wakati tunakaa hapa, tunakaa kama kujisukumia, lakini wenyewe hatupendi. Ni kwa sababu wanasema hata mkiendelea kukaa hapa, mjue hapa sio kwenyu, mtatoka mahali hapa.
Inaweza saidia kama wanaweza shikwa. Sababu ni kwamba hawa watu wenye walitupiga walikuwa wanasema kazi wamefanya nini? Wamepewa, walikuwa wamegawanyishwa kikundi. Kuna mtu wa kukatakata, kuna mtu wa kuchoma na kuna mtu wa kupora mali. Hao wakishikwa, hata hawa wengine watajifunza nao na hata waezi choma.
Sasa vile unasema hata kama ni ICC ishike hawa watu wakubwa, hawa sponsors, itasaidia. Na kuna mwingine anaitwa Waki. Mulisikia mambo ya Waki report? Alipoenda yule judge akaangalia akasema kama recommendation yake mzuri sana ilikuwa hii inaitwa special tribunal. Iwe hapa Kenya lakini si yetu. Ni international. Iko na Wakenya, iko na jaji moja Mkenya na watu majaji wawili ambao sio wa Kenya. Halafu kuna prosecutor ambayo sio Mkenya. Iko na wengine wanasaidia lakini hao ni wa Kenya. Kuna investigation ya police lakini mkubwa sio Mkenya. Anatoka ng'ambo, anatoka South Africa, anaweza kutoka Ghana ama nchi nyingine ama kutoka Ulaya. Ndio wako in charge ya hiyo mambo ya investigation. Mnaona hiyo inaweza kusaidia?
Hiyo inaweza kusaidia kwa sababu haitakuwa na shortcut. Kwa ajili ya mambo ya kuhongana, hawatahongana.
How can people be expected to live together when they feel wrongs have not been righted? When no one is brought to book? So here we are in a situation where people have been violated, their homes have been burnt, and nobody seems to care. You feel a sense of a lack of trust for the state and what the state should do. And that moves then also into a lack of the justice system, and a lack of trust in the justice system. And these are issues that that are really complex, that have got many sides to them, and people are still trying to figure out what is the best way forward, how do we move these processes so that this country can be able to come back together and move together.
Maina Kiai, I want to tell you this without fear of contradiction. It is true, we have very bad elements in the police force, arising from inadequacies of the law and the structures establishing them. But it is also true, we have thousands of quality policemen in this country. I want to be able to differentiate the two. Some people were arrested and charged with offenses arising from the Kiambaa fire. The court discharged them, but there were celebrations when those youths were released. I have checked and I've asked from the grassroots that no healing has occurred at the grassroots level. None at all. There's no healing.
The judgment, if I've read the judgment,
yes,
said it was a lack of sufficient evidence.
Precisely.
And really categorically lambasted the police.
Yes.
How do we move? I mean, this is the same thing. The special tribunal, you say, will fail in Parliament. We don't have confidence in our police. The judiciary has no confidence in police. You don't have confidence in the way we investigate, all of us. How do we get justice then? For the victims of post-election violence?
If your house is leaking, what do? You climb, you add grass, or you put a new mabati, and then you start building another one. The opportunity for Kenya to build the sort of confidence that we require is now.
We have been promised police and judicial reforms for the last 15 years. and it's gotten us absolutely nowhere. It's certainly a decisive moment in Kenya's history. Let's hope we go for the opportunity rather than a fatal mistake. It really would be good to talk to the Commissioner of Police. What's his side of the story? So here we are. This is the letter to the Commissioner of Police seeking an appointment. Apparently one has to write a letter here to get an appointment. So let's see what happens. Let me go in. What do you see as the challenge, or what do you see as the potential outcome for Kenya if we don't have justice for the post-election violence?
I'm spooked, very worried about the kinds of things I see and hear here. There is no other place, not even in Nigeria, with very severe problems of identity and sectarianism and all of that. There's no other place I see what I think. There are no Kenyans. In Kenya, you belong to a tribe, and that is how it is called. You have Luos and Luya and Kikuyu and Kalenjin, and it's not, that doesn't just happen in the realm of national macro politics. It happens in who you hire in the workplace, who lives next to you, where people live, who gets rent in what apartment. And so the country is being segregated. So if I wanted to unleash mass atrocity, I know where to find the Luos, I know where to find the Kalenjin, I know where to find the Luya, and I suspect I know where to find the Kikuyu. That is a recipe for apocalypse. I'm sorry. Otherwise, I do not see that there will be any elections here in 2011 or 2012.
2012.
2012 will not happen, and if it happens, the last person to leave the country alive should just turn off the lights.
Other countries have looked into the abyss as well. Rwanda descended into hell and is still in the process of reconciling and rebuilding 15 years after genocide. I arrived for Liberation Day, celebrating the victory of the Rwandan Patriotic Front. This is Chief of General Staff James Kabarebe, talking to visitors and journalists about the takeover. I learned here that a shared sense of history is very important in rebuilding a country, and of course, strong leadership. This country is held together by the iron will of President Paul Kagame. Rwanda used both national and international trials to hold people accountable for the 1994 genocide.
Pictures on the windows, and they have a light coming out from outside. When we collected these pictures, and we had actually some members of family who survived, we asked them some questions about this, and they gave us actually the summary of the lives of these children.
But the country is haunted by the failures of the international community, including the struggle to get culprits charged and convicted abroad. There is a very strong sense of self-reliance.
You're the prosecutor general.
Yes.
Now, there are many people who say that really you can't move forward after a crisis or after genocide or after atrocities unless there is justice, some form of accountability. Do you think that now, with the process Rwanda has gone through, that the possibility of another genocide is much reduced, or what do you think?
I also believe you cannot have sustainable, sustainable stability after a major conflict like we had, if you haven't done justice. Impunity is the cause of all these situations that we have gone through. Impunity was the main cause of genocide.
Can you explain that a bit?
Yes, we have had more genocides before. Genocides by legal definition. In 1994 wasn't the only genocide we had. We had it in 59, we had it in 62, we had it in 73. If you define a genocide as it is in international statutes, we have had many genocides. But we had the biggest genocide in 1994 as a result of the impunity that we had in the previous years. So it would have been a big mistake for us to continue in that line. So it's very pertinent that you cannot ignore the aspect of justice if we wanted to rebuild the country after the major conflict. But it is also important to have the system or the form of justice that is considerate of reconciliation.
Knowing the history of conflict in your country and not letting people get away with it should make Kenyans think very hard.
We don't forget the past, but we're focusing on the future. Yeah.
If we don't get justice now, it gets worse, not better.
I like pictures.
Speciosa is a survivor of the genocide. Her husband and children were killed.
In terms of justice, but even reconciliation, what advice can you give to Kenyans who have gone through a process of violence, a very serious process of violence?
The very first steps that can be taken to help victims of violence is to compensate them materially. You can't bring people back, but if they've lost their property and belongings, the first step is to return their property. At least then they feel they still have rights. The second step is to rebuild their spirits, to give them moral support and make sure the culprits are punished. Punishing doesn't mean killing someone, but the fact there is a trial and people are held accountable is very important.
Balancing justice and reconciliation, tough decisions have to be made. Rwanda had hundreds of thousands of perpetrators in jail. Many had to be released. Local courts, Gacaca, handled community-based confessions to process the perpetrators and get them back home. I found someone who was willing to talk to me on camera about killing, and her story has lessons for our Kenyan youth. Francoise has been sentenced to 19 years for her part in the Rwandan genocide. She was 23 when she was manning roadblocks. Kenyan youth, take note.
What were the messages? What was used to incite you to form the group and to do this killing?
In the beginning, they formed political parties and asked the youth to join. When we go to the meetings without money, they would give money. Then they asked us to help man the roadblocks. And after we would go and celebrate, they told us why it's okay to kill, using bad terms against the Tutsi. In the end, it looked okay to kill them.
Did they pay you for killing during the genocide?
Yes, they would pay us. It just looked to us like they were giving out money. In truth, there's no reward in killing someone. It's the work of the devil. We killed our friends for nothing.
Harun Dubi says he heard some very similar stories from young men giving evidence at the Waki Commission in Kenya.
Yeah, what the conversations they had with the promoters of the violence was that they actually received funding in support of, allegedly to support the people from their communities from being harassed. What they do not speak directly is what specific instruction they had, whether to go and kill or maim, but on account of what subsequently happened, one can safely assume that the funding they were receiving was for purposes of facilitating their movement and probably purchase of arms to go and harm those that were harmed.
Hold accountable, restoring victims, a strong sense of history. It should worry us just how far we are in Kenya from even starting to take these steps.
wakati mwaka jana wakati wake alikuwa amekuja. Sasa hapo ndio tuliojiwa, tukasema mambo yote, tukapelekwa hospitali hapo Liverpool. Vile tulienda Liverpool, kuna wengine walipatikana na ugonjwa na kuna wengine ambao walipata hii ugonjwa ya sasa ya AIDS.
Wasikwe, waseme kwa nini walifanyia sisi hivyo. Juu sisi tulitoa kura vizuri, tulijua tutapata haki yetu. Nyumaye sasa wanafanyia sisi hivyo.
So we say this. Wakitaka vizuri, wachane na hizi vitu ya kina waki na kina campus, and all that. And human rights. We bury them, Wakenya tuendelee vile tuko, we prepare ourselves to vote 212.
No, it's not justice. No, it is an offense.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is
offense.
This.
Mob violence is an offense. Tunasema justice lakini hiyo ni uongo.
Okay, but
Sawa?
But what I'm trying to say is this. Are you saying that list is naming the people who acted, but not the people who oppressed them so that they can act?
Ocampo aje afanye uchunguzi upya tupate the culprits, the real culprits. Kwa sababu hata waki anaweza kuwa alionwa huko akapewa lori mbili akasema usiweke jina yangu.
Manipulation.
Yeah. So as long as we don't trust our courts.
Sasa Ocampo akija aseme the number one ni Raila Odinga. Mtasema nini hapa? Aende.
As long as
akisema ni Kibaki aende. Akisema ni Martha Karua aende. Lakini mna trust Ocampo. Victims and survivors in Kenya have struggled to get assistance. That was obvious wherever I went. Mary and her husband still depend on well-wishers to look after them. The government says it can't afford to give her more treatment. They feel abandoned. There is a nationwide feeling that the victims of violence should just get on with it and get over it. And IDPs in Kisumu, like Dorothy, are struggling to even be acknowledged as IDPs. They have just received their basic resettlement allowance, more than a year after the crisis. This lack of respect for victims of the violence is not just by government officials and politicians, but many of us too. Admit it, we feel selective sympathy. We only think someone is a victim if they're one of our own. And let's be frank, it's not just ethnicity that divides us. The conflict was also about the haves and the have-nots, played out in every community at the roadblocks and in residential areas. It's a wake-up call for us all.
Umoja ni fahari yetu, undugu ndio nguvu, chuki na ukabila hatutaki.
How long can we ignore the huge gaps in our society?
Lazima tuungane, tuijenge nchi yetu, pasiwe hata moja.
Nilikuwa Nakuru. Kufika nikaenda Muchari direct, nikapata watatu wa Muchari.
Na hao ni watu gani?
Msananga kanipigia simu, mama wamepiga Michael bunduki.
Look what happened when I went with Rose to visit her son Michael, still in hospital with a festering gunshot wound. No entry. Not allowed. Go to the boss. What happens if there's a fire, man?
Ni sasa ni binadamu tu moja, na watu wamekufa wengi, tuko na hasira mingi, kama mimi naye niko na hasira yenye hata.
Her daughter was shot dead by police and her 2 grandchildren killed by vehicles in the panic that followed. Michael, her son, was shot a week later in the leg. Rose has been impoverished by endless hospital bills, and she's not aware of any police investigations into the shootings.
Polisi walifanya vibaya, maana ya polisi walikuwa naua tu watu ofyo ofyo.
Hakuna mtu mwenye ako na makosa, umesimama, unatembea, ni bunduki inapita tu kwako.
Lina's husband, 49 years old, was also shot dead near a roadblock in burnt forest. Strangely, no investigation followed.
Ni makari tatu ya serikali. Sasa hiyo makari kukuja hivyo tu, hata sasa wajamaa wakatoka. Kaambiwa, simungoje mutolewe kisiki ilikuwa kwa barabara. Ati wakakuwa serious. Sasa vile walikuwa serious, atu mmoja akatoa bunduki, akapiga risasi juu. Hakuna mtu alitasamia nyuma. Kila mtu alikuwa anachiokoa sababu hajui ni nini itaendeka. Sasa kijana tu alisikia risasi ya pili
ya polisi. Na hawa walikuwa polisi ama walikuwa jeshi ama
ni polisi. Ni polisi. Sasa ile kijana amefikia huko, ameona baba ameinamia hivi. Sasa jamaa wakaanza kuwakisha kari. Sasa kijana akaona baba damu imetokea kwa mavua na mdomo, akajua sasa ameharibika. Kuona baba ameanguka, kijana akachomoka. Ilimshikilia nyuma
mgongo
hapa mfopu hii ikatokea kwa pande ya kushoto tu hapo tu. Sasa huyo ndio tulienda mpaka Band Forest, tukaenda tukaandika statement na tukarudi. Baada ya siku 3 tena tukaitiwa ati mkuje muandike statement zingine, tukarudi. Na hiyo sasa ikakuwa ya mwisho statement, na tukaambiwa muende mkangojee tarehe fulani tutakuja pale mzee alikufia. Ndio andikwe, apikwe picha na tutaenda mpaka nyumbani tupike kaburini. Sasa tukawasiliana na simu na huyo chief akaniambia kesho mpaka akanipigia simu akaniambia hao jamaa walirudi Nairobi na tujui watarudi lini. Wacha tungoje siku watarudi ndio tutawaambia nyinyi. Sasa kutoka siku hiyo sikusikia kitu kingine inaendelea.
Kutoka hiyo siku ulienda kwa polisi ukaandika statement. Wamekuja kukuona, wamekuja kusaidia nyinyi, wamefanya uchunguzi gani?
Hakuna kitu chochote. Ni vile niliwachwa na mzee hivyo tu. Nimepambana na shida yangu kutoka asubuhi mpaka saa hii.
Getting answers in Kenya is very tough. There's been a lot of unanswered questions about the role of the police in the violence. Every time they tell us, go up to the top to get permission so they can talk to us. So I've decided if we can go into the police station and see if we can see the commissioner. Nataka kuona kama niweza kupiga picha ya commissioner. Let me just see if I can get the excuse me. I've asked, they told me to come and see the public relations officer. It's public relations. I want to take a picture of the picture. Can I can't just go in and be shown it? I'm not... The picture of the commissioner? Yes. Jambo, sir. How are you, sir? My name is Kiai. Hata mimi nitakujua. Jina yako ni? John Munyoki. Haya. Nataka kupiga picha ya commissioner. Hiyo tu.
Lakini siku mimi tunajua wewe unajua authority mahali unatoka.
Lakini kuulize hii mambo ya picha. It's a picture only we want to take. It's not a criminal offense. We're not breaking any law by taking a picture. It's not a state secret, the picture. So why can't we take a picture of him?
You know, such a information you have to get it from my boss.
Wow. Even to take the picture, you're being bumped up. Is it any wonder they don't talk to you anywhere? But sometimes it's good to test the systems. The police say they are reforming. The police say they are a different force from they used to be. They're more open and transparent. At least they're not harassing, they're kind, gentle. Let's see. OCPD. Good afternoon, madam. How are you today? How are you, madam? I want to see the OCPD. Mr. Kenya. Here. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. I am sorry, my name is Maina Kiai. I'm just coming for a small request from you. I wanted to get permission. I went to the complaint office. They told me, see somebody, they see somebody. I'm not trying to disturb anybody. All I want is a picture.
Because I don't expect you to come to a police station with that kind of request. And if you do it, then we are going to arrest you.
I know enough about custody, sir.
No. Why can you go to his office?
I have tried. I have tried, sir.
Because you can access it.
I have tried. There is no access. They don't give you an answer. So I wanted to see him.
Maybe you didn't know whom to approach.
I'm sure even if you wanted a portrait of the commissioner.
Yes.
It is all over Kenya.
Where?
Why not?
It is only in a...
No,
it doesn't... No. I don't have to be. I have freedom of movement, sir. I can I can look for it in Garissa. You can't ask me. You can't ask me. It doesn't matter where my office is. I am a free citizen. It does not.
You must have a sinister movement.
A sinister?
Yes.
So you're telling me, sir, that if I go, I visit a town, it's sinister?
Do this, yeah?
Yeah.
Do this, yeah?
This is interesting.
Do this, yeah?
Yes, sir.
You know what? This client is here because you want to be served.
Okay, thank you.
But actually, you simply decided to come in and...
No, I asked secretary. She told me you can go in because that's a very small thing. So I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Now I understand. So I understand. I understand that the problem is that we have not asked for weeks in advance to take a picture of the commissioner of police. No. That's why I'm wondering.
I'm asking you. Do you think it is going to add value to what you are preparing?
It actually does.
Unless you don't have other things to shoot.
No, actually it adds. It adds a lot of value.
Give us peace of mind and let us serve the Kenyans with a bit of...
Okay, Sawa. Thank you very much. You have made your point. So there you have it. See how hard it is to see the commissioner of police, to even see his picture. It's all go up, go up, go up. Says a lot about the institution, doesn't it? Well, no answers here. So let's go to The Hague. Luis Moreno Ocampo, ICC prosecutor, agreed to talk to me. He's already received boxes of evidence from the Waki Commission in Kenya and a list of suspects from the man who brought our political leaders together, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. There are some Kenyans who think that the ICC interferes with the sovereignty and the dignity of a country.
I'm working for African people. African leaders decided to create this court. This court is created by more than 30 African countries. So they decided, they used their own sovereignty to create this idea, this court. And this is a great idea. And African leaders are leading the world in ending impunity. So,
but African leaders also seem to be the ones who are most opposed now to ICC.
Not all of them, a few of them.
Yeah.
Those who have problems. It's okay. I think, look, the solution in Kenya is basically in the hands of Kenyan people. And my job is to work respecting all the state parties. That's why before jumping a case, I would respect the timing that they need to organize how they like to work in Kenya. But if they don't do the case, they told me, the Kenyan authority told me, prosecutor, if we cannot do it, please do it.
Some people in Kenya think that that's too long. Parliament has said they are not going to do it. And there is clearly dissatisfaction in Kenya with the criminal justice process. Why aren't you just stepping in?
We are still collecting information. We are still checking what happened in Kenya. The Waki Commission report was very interesting. And when it's proper, we'll make it our decision.
So you not depend upon the Kofi Annan list?
I think Kofi Annan did a great job in Kenya. And I think I understand this is very important. In any case, what the Kofi Annan or the Waki Commission think who has to be prosecuted is not mandatory for me. I collect evidence impartially, and I follow my evidence. That's what I had to do. But these opinions are very important for me. But at the end of the day, I had to keep my independence.
Coming back from The Hague, Kenyans say If you go to The Hague, you never come back. No further forward, it seems.
I'm afraid these quick fixes, knee-jerk reactions, whereby you go to, don't be vague, go for The Hague, it's hot air. Ultimately, it doesn't solve the problem of the system of governance, law and order for your country. Let me remind you, we have an opportunity in consultations, talking to each other, talking with each other, to devise a system whereby we can tell everybody outside the boundaries of Kenya, we have a system for prosecuting our own sons and our own daughters when they violate law and commit offenses against humanity. We have a system for prosecuting them internally. Only then are we going to pass muster that very basic principle that we are independent, that we are able, that we can do it.
A truth commission is not a substitute. It's a complement. A truth commission is a complement. And again, I mean, there are no perfect solutions to these things. A truth commission has a role to play, I think, in constructing memory, because part of this is also the struggle of man against power and of woman against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. But if you're not going to have any way of disincentivizing mass atrocities committed by people who have a political project, then the political narratives have no meaning, because what you're saying basically is that people can destroy all of that and there'll be no consequences attached as long as they're in control of the machinery of government. And that is what leads to civil war.
I think impunity is one of Kenya's most serious problems in terms of getting us out of the quagmire we have found ourselves in. And until we start to address the accountability issue, we cannot move out of the impasse that we found ourselves in. We can drag it out, as we're doing. We can have commissions of inquiry, we can have truth commissions, we can have debates about delays, we can have discussions about the ICC, but ultimately, until we have prosecutions and convictions of those who are responsible for these acts, we're not going to find ourselves a way out of this mess.
Excuse me, I'm looking for Philip Waki's chambers.
Well, we could just shelve the Waki report along with all those other inquiries and task forces that have come to absolutely nothing. Remember them? That's our history of impunity. But let's just say hello to Judge Philip Waki. I want to collect my copy of the Waki report in person.
To name or not to name?
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Thank you.
How are you?
Very well, very well. So this is it.
Here it is.
Thank you. Good. That's the report.
Because there's not really a lot else to hold on to. Our political leaders, from both sides, are comfortably sharing power in our coalition. They feel no reason to expose the truth or each other. So we are playing a deadly game of wait and see. What can Kenyans do? We can face up to the wrongs we have done, by our own as well as against our own. And we must push our leaders to take action. How do we do it? That is one of the most important questions now facing this country.
Don't forget, it won't just go away. So, keep a record, write it down, and don't be defeated. Don't be beaten down by violence. And even better, write to the ICC and the Minister of Justice making your demands.
Because the longer we wait, or if we do this badly, the possibility of apocalypse in Kenya is real.
Kijani ni ya ardhi, nyeupe ya amani, mwananchi mzalendo.